The park was a canvas of autumn's finest, brilliant shades of red, gold, and orange stretched across the landscape like a painter's palette. The crisp air was invigorating, carrying with it the faint rustle of leaves. Sarah and I walked leisurely along the winding path, our fingers entwined as we discussed our weekend plans. "Have you thought about what we should do for the anniversary?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I glanced over at her, a smile tugging at my lips. "I was thinking of that new restaurant downtown. They have a great review for their anniversary specials." Sarah's face lit up with approval. "That sounds perfect. It'll be nice to get out of the house and try something new." Our conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by the soft crunch of leaves beneath our feet. As we rounded a bend, a figure emerged from the trees. He was stumbling toward us, his face flushed and contorted with anger. His ragged breaths and wild eyes made it clear that something was terribly wrong. "John! John!" he shouted, his voice breaking with frustration. "You think you can just take her and walk away?" I turned to Sarah, my smile fading. "Do you know him?" Before Sarah could respond, the man lunged at me. His wild, uncoordinated attacks caught me off guard, but years of karate training allowed me to react instinctively. I sidestepped his first swing and grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back in a controlled move. "Stop! Stop it!" I commanded, trying to subdue him without causing serious harm. "What's going on here?" The man gritted his teeth, his voice a strained whisper. "You think you can just take her from me? She's been with me for months." Sarah's face turned a shade paler, and she stepped back, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and guilt. "John, Quiet," the man barked, his eyes still locked on me. "She's my girlfriend, John. She's been lying to you." My grip tightened as I wrestled him to the ground, making sure he was restrained but not injured. I glanced over at Sarah, who was now visibly trembling. "Is this true?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "Have you been seeing this man?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was a mistake." The man's struggles weakened as I held him firmly. "A mistake?" I repeated incredulously. "Months of deception? You call that a mistake?" "John, please," Sarah pleaded, her eyes pleading. "It wasn't supposed to end like this." Alex, the man who had attacked me, finally stopped resisting. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and despair. "I didn't want this. I wanted to confront you, to make you see what she's been doing." I released Alex, allowing him to sit on the grass while I tried to process the situation. "So what now?" I asked, my voice heavy with exhaustion and betrayal. Alex looked up at me, his expression softening slightly. "I don't know what's next. But I'm willing to work together if it means getting to the bottom of this." Sarah, still standing a few feet away, looked between us with tears in her eyes. "John, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. The park, once a place of serenity, now seemed tainted by the shadows of betrayal. "We'll talk later," I said, my voice clipped. "For now, I need some space." As I turned away, the autumn leaves continued to fall around us, each one a reminder of the fragility of trust and the harsh reality of human imperfections. In the days following the confrontation in the park, I felt like I was wading through a fog of anger and confusion. Sarah's betrayal was a gaping wound that I couldn't ignore, and her explanations did little to ease the pain. It was clear to me that I needed more answers, answers that could only come from confronting the reality of the situation. I arranged to meet Alex, the man who had attacked me, at a quiet, dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place where people went to disappear into the shadows, which seemed fitting for our purpose. The cafe smelled of strong coffee and stale pastries, and the low hum of conversation provided a backdrop for our uneasy meeting. Alex was already seated at a corner table when I arrived. He looked up as I approached, his expression a mixture of weariness and determination. I slid into the seat opposite him, trying to suppress the residual anger I felt. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, my voice steady but guarded. Alex gave a short nod. "I figured we both need answers. This isn't how I wanted it to go down." I looked him in the eye, searching for sincerity. "Why should I trust you? You came at me with anger and accusations." Alex leaned forward, his hands clasped together on the table. "I know it's a lot to ask. But if we're both looking for the truth, we might be able to find it together. I've got some connections that could help us dig deeper." I hesitated, weighing his words. "What exactly do you have in mind?" "Let's start with the basics," Alex said, his tone becoming more focused. "We need someone who can help us uncover any hidden communications. I know a hacker, Theo. He's good, and he owes me a favor." I was skeptical but willing to explore any option. "All right, let's bring Theo in. But remember, this isn't just about proving Sarah's infidelity. I need to understand why it happened." A few days later, I found myself in Theo's cluttered apartment. He was a wiry young man with a quick wit and an air of casual confidence. His workspace was a chaotic tangle of cables and screens, but he seemed to thrive in the disorder. "Alex says you've got a knack for finding hidden things," I said, shaking Theo's hand. "I need you to help us dig through Sarah's communications." Theo raised an eyebrow, his fingers already dancing over his keyboard. "Hidden things, you say? Sounds like my kind of job. I'll need access to her devices and accounts, though." Alex and I exchanged a look, then I handed Theo a USB drive with the relevant data. "Here's everything we've managed to gather. I need you to find out who she's been in contact with and anything that might shed light on her actions." Theo plugged in the drive and began typing rapidly. "I'll see what I can find. It'll take a little time, but I'll get back to you with whatever I uncover." As Theo worked, Alex and I sat in silence, the weight of our shared mission hanging heavily between us. "Do you ever think we'll find out the whole truth?" Alex asked, his voice soft but tinged with doubt. "I hope so," I replied, looking out the window at the city beyond. "I need to understand why this happened. Without that, there's no way to move forward." A few days later, Theo contacted us with his findings. We met in the same cafe where Alex and I had first discussed our alliance. Theo's face was a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. "I found something," Theo said, sliding a folder across the table. "Sarah's been communicating with someone named David Clark. Their conversations are encrypted, but I managed to crack some of it." I flipped through the printed messages, my heart sinking as I read through the exchanges. They were filled with emotional confessions and plans, evidence of a relationship that had been more than just an affair. It was clear that Sarah's involvement with David was deeply rooted and complex. "Who is David Clark?" Alex asked, his voice betraying a hint of curiosity. "David Clark is someone Sarah reached out to after suspecting I was unfaithful," I explained, feeling a surge of frustration. "It seems their relationship was built on a misunderstanding, but it doesn't make the betrayal any less painful." Alex nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "So, what's our next move?" "We need to confront David," I said, determination hardening my voice. "We need to get answers from him and understand the full extent of what's happened." As we prepared for the confrontation, the uneasy alliance between Alex and me solidified into a partnership driven by a shared quest for the truth. The path ahead was uncertain, but we were committed to uncovering the reality of Sarah's actions and finding a way to move forward from the wreckage. The office building on the outskirts of town was nondescript, a monolithic structure of glass and steel that seemed to blend into the urban sprawl. It was the kind of place where secrets could be hidden behind closed doors. Alex and I arrived early, our breaths visible in the cool morning air as we waited in the parking lot. The sky was overcast, adding to the atmosphere of impending confrontation. "I hope you're ready for this," Alex said, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of nervousness. I adjusted my coat, feeling the weight of the upcoming confrontation. "As ready as I'll ever be. We need to get some answers from David Clark." Theo had managed to find David's office address and had arranged for us to meet him there. The plan was simple: confront David with the evidence Theo had uncovered and demand an explanation. There was a tense silence between Alex and me as we made our way to the building's entrance. Inside, the lobby was sleek and modern, with marble floors and minimalist decor. We approached the receptionist, a woman with a professional demeanor who gave us a curious look. "We're here to see David Clark," Alex said, his voice authoritative but polite. "He's expecting us." The receptionist checked her appointment list and nodded. "He's in his office on the 10th floor. You can take the elevator." The elevator ride was silent, the tension palpable. When the doors opened on the 10th floor, we walked down a hallway lined with framed artwork and into David's office, a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a panoramic view of the city. David was standing behind his desk, his demeanor calm and collected. He looked up as we entered, his face a mask of practiced neutrality. "John, Alex," David said, his tone cool and measured. "I didn't expect to see you here. What can I do for you?" Alex took a step forward, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "We need to talk about your relationship with Sarah. We've uncovered evidence of your communications with her, and we want to understand why this happened." David's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "I see. And what exactly do you want to know?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to know why Sarah felt the need to seek comfort from you. She believed I was being unfaithful, and it led to this mess. I need to understand how things got to this point." David leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. "Sarah came to me in a time of emotional vulnerability. She had suspicions about your loyalty, and I provided her with the support she needed. But it's clear there's been a misunderstanding." Alex's eyes were hard as he spoke. "A misunderstanding that led to a significant breach of trust. Did you know she was married?" "Yes," David admitted, his voice even. "I was aware of her marital status. But she was insistent on discussing her issues, and our relationship evolved from there." I clenched my fists, trying to contain my frustration. "So, you were aware of the situation and continued the affair anyway?" David's gaze didn't waver. "It wasn't a simple affair. It was complex, and emotions were involved. I didn't intend to cause harm, but I can't deny that my actions contributed to the situation." I felt a surge of anger but forced myself to stay calm. "Do you have any idea how this has affected Sarah, me, and our lives?" David sighed, a trace of remorse crossing his features. "I understand that this has been incredibly painful for both of you. I didn't anticipate the full impact of my actions, but I can't change what's happened." Alex shifted uncomfortably but spoke up. "What about your interactions with Sarah? What did you discuss?" David's expression softened slightly. "We talked about her doubts, her fears, and her frustrations. She believed you were unfaithful, which drove her to seek solace elsewhere. Our conversations were emotional and honest, but they were never intended to deceive." I glanced at Alex, who seemed as frustrated as I was. "Thank you for your time, David. We needed to hear this from you." As we left the office, Alex and I were quiet, the weight of the revelations heavy between us. The confrontation had provided some clarity but no easy answers. The path forward seemed more uncertain than ever. In the car, Alex broke the silence. "So, what now? How do you plan to handle this?" I stared out the window, the city lights blurring past. "I need to talk to Sarah. We have to face this together and decide what's next." Alex nodded, his expression reflecting a mix of understanding and resignation. "Good luck with that. If you need anything, you know where to find me." The drive home was a reflective one. The confrontation had been painful, but it had also provided the insight needed to begin addressing the complexities of the situation. As I approached the house, I knew that the next steps would be difficult but necessary for rebuilding what had been broken. The weeks following the confrontation with David were a whirlwind of raw emotions and difficult conversations. Sarah and I had decided to face the reality of our situation head-on. The path to reconciliation was fraught with challenges, but we were committed to rebuilding our relationship with honesty and transparency. Our first step was to seek professional help. We began attending couples counseling, which provided a structured environment for us to explore our feelings and work through the issues that had surfaced. The sessions were intense, often leaving us emotionally drained, but they were also a crucial part of our healing process. Our therapist, Dr. Matthews, was a calm and perceptive presence. During one session, she guided us through a discussion about the roots of our mistrust and the ways we could start to rebuild our bond. "John, Sarah," Dr. Matthews said, her tone encouraging. "It's important to understand that rebuilding trust takes time and effort from both sides. What are your thoughts on how you can begin to heal from this?" Sarah took a deep breath, her hands clasped in her lap. "I know I've made mistakes, and I regret the hurt I've caused. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild trust, but I understand it won't be easy." I nodded, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. "I appreciate that, Sarah. For me, it's about understanding why things happened the way they did and finding a way to move forward. I need to be able to trust you again, and that starts with transparency and communication." Dr. Matthews nodded approvingly. "That's a good start. Open and honest communication will be key in this process. Remember, rebuilding trust is about consistent actions over time." In addition to therapy, Sarah and I made an effort to reconnect on a personal level. We spent time together doing activities we once enjoyed, trying to rekindle the bond that had been overshadowed by recent events. It was a slow process, but we found moments of joy in shared experiences, which helped to rebuild some of the emotional connections that had been strained. One evening, we decided to take a walk through the park where the confrontation had first occurred. The park was now a place of healing rather than a symbol of betrayal. As we walked along the familiar path, the serenity of the surroundings helped to calm our nerves. "I remember when we used to come here just to relax," Sarah said, her voice soft and reflective. "It feels different now, but it's good to be here together." I glanced at her, seeing the earnestness in her eyes. "It does feel different, but I'm glad we're here. It's important to face these places and memories together." Sarah stopped walking and turned to face me. "I know I can't undo the past, but I want to make things right. I want us to move forward with a fresh start." I reached out and took her hand, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. "We can do that. It's going to take time and patience, but I believe we can rebuild our relationship. We just need to be honest with each other and work through this together." A few days later, we had a heart-to-heart conversation in the comfort of our home. It was a conversation about our future and the steps we needed to take to rebuild our trust. "John, I want to be open about everything," Sarah said, her voice steady but emotional. "If there's anything you need to know, just ask. I want us to have a fresh start and be completely transparent with each other." I nodded, appreciating her commitment. "I need that transparency. I need to know that we're both committed to working through this and that we're on the same page." Sarah's eyes were filled with sincerity. "We are on the same page. I want to rebuild our trust, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I love you, and I want our relationship to be stronger than it was before." As we moved forward, our relationship was still a work in progress. We continued with therapy, worked on improving our communication, and made a conscious effort to spend quality time together. The process was gradual and often challenging, but we were determined to create a foundation of trust and understanding. By focusing on honesty, empathy, and consistent effort, Sarah and I began to heal from the wounds of the past. The journey wasn't easy, but it was a testament to the resilience of our relationship and our commitment to each other. The park, once a place of betrayal, became a symbol of our determination to overcome the past and build a future together. With each step forward, we were reminded that while the path to reconciliation was difficult, it was also filled with hope and the promise of renewal.